You're at a job interview. You get the "What is your biggest weakness?" question. What is your answer? This might only be applicable to someone newly out of college or applying for entry-level jobs, but I had a professor tell me to say lack of experience. If you're applying for an intro-level job, it's expected, it's a weakness that's not really your fault, and you can spin it as a reason you should get the job. I do this. I always say, well, since I'm still a student, lack of practical experience in this field. Most of my knowledge is theoretical from class, however I am excited, motivated to apply what I learned in class to the real world, always something that can be turned into a positive smiley face. I'm terrible at interviews, got me my job. You're a genius. My last boss told me that I'm condescending and that it's a huge area I need to work on. That means I talk down to people. It's a version of a Bob Newhart joke. I don't like country music, but I don't mean to denigrate those who do. And for the people who like country music, denigrate means put down. My answer to that question at the local ice cream parlor was, my biggest weakness is chocolate. I got the job. And a free scoop of chocolate ice cream every day I worked there. My old roommate tried that for a desk job once. She said the interviewer gave her a blank stare, quietly wrote something down, then continued with the interview. She didn't get the job. Wouldn't want to work with someone so dry anyway. It's a bad interview question, but if the person interviewing you asks you something, you should at least try to answer it. Dodging it isn't a good look. Maybe use it as a joke to transition into your answer, like, what's your biggest weakness? Chocolate. Haha, no, but seriously, probably the drinking. Honesty, I don't think that's really a weakness. I don't give asterisk it what you think. The year is 2015 and I'm interviewing for my first job at an unnamed game studio. I am super nervous. I did the pre-interview tests and they liked them. And I get the question. I get really nervous and I talk a lot and ramble. It's pretty much word vomit until my brain catches up with my mouth, until I catch up with what I just said, and most of the time I can't really remember the question. It got a lot of laughs in the room, but I really couldn't remember at the time what the director just asked me. Did they ever name the game studio? That dad joke tickled me more than most dad jokes. Well done, Dad. Honest answer followed by how you're improving. I tend to procrastinate, but I keep that at bay by sticking to a to-do list, etc. My last job had very vague to-do lists. They were pretty much the same thing every shift. Stock X department, check dates, rotate stock, fill balloon corral, etc. So in an interview I just used that as an example for staying on task. Then they hit me with, well, how do you make sure you do things on your list? My dumbass was like, I'm not really sure what you're asking. Just do it. Well, I'd say my weakness is the cause of me getting fired from my last 8 jobs. I bring in too many turtles apparently. I don't know how many the right amount of turtles is because I've brought anywhere from 50 up to 300. It seems unreasonable to bring less than 50, so I just don't get it. I would be honest during my interview about how many turtles I plan to bring to work with me and let loose in the facility, but they never ask. What about you guys? How many turtles do you guys bring to not get fired? I typically bring only around 25, but every place is different. Interviewer, what is your greatest weakness? Me, answering the semantics of a question while ignoring the pragmatics provided by the context. Interviewer, interesting. Could you give me an example? Me, yes. I usually approach it honestly. I'm super hard on myself to the point that it can be counterproductive. So I typically don't need a lot of coaching when I make a mistake, but I need to be reminded to move on. Either my crippling alcoholism or penchant for theft, but I'm working on it. Hick. The problem with kleptomaniacs is that they always take things literally. Hand them a quality business card that says, I over-prepare. That says you work at the place you're applying to. The back of my neck is extremely sensitive. If someone were to grab me by my neck and dig their nails in, I'd most likely pass out, therefore making it easier for someone to steal items. What? Yeah, it sucks. One of my friends forgot this and she hugged me, and when she placed her hand on the back of my neck, my knees felt like they were going to give out. To clarify why this happens, I have an abnormal amount of nerve endings around the rear base of my neck. Enough where I can feel someone breathing on my neck that's about a foot away. I've gotten used to my hair touching my neck, but any source of touching other than my own hair will set off my nerves. I have a solid management background. I always tell them that I am bad at delegating. I prefer to do it myself so I know it gets done right and on time. That it is hard for me to trust other coworkers at first. That answer seems to work so far. I know it's an honest answer and I appreciate that, but it would be a red flag for me as an interviewer. Delegating is just such a huge part of being a good manager. Agreed. Saying you're bad at delegating is probably the worst answer to this question for a management position. Terrified at public speaking is usually the one I go with. It's fairly relatable but easy to brush off by saying I get past it through practice. It also has the benefit of being true. It's socially acceptable to be bad at public speaking. You don't do it enough, best answer emo. Wooden stakes to the heart. Not that I'm a vampire, I'm just pretty sure that would kill me. To be fair, not many things can survive a wooden stake to the heart. Not with that attitude. The obvious ones are those "I'm a perfectionist I suppose, it's one of my biggest weaknesses, but they are so cheesy and BS. The best is just being honest. My biggest weakness? I'm a fat mofo and if anyone leaves food on my desk it's getting eaten, no questions asked. I used this in a job interview before I knew that it's a cliché response, but it seemed to go over well, maybe because I genuinely meant it. It was for a bookstore job, and I explained that if I'm supposed to just straighten a section but I notice that it's not alphabetized, there are books from a different section there, etc., I'm going to have a hard time just straightening the books visually and moving on. I'll want to put them in the proper spots, dust, etc., which is a real problem when time is of the essence. I did get the job, though, and one of my favorite tasks was zone maintenance, scanning each item, straightening, dusting, making sure the signs and shelf labels were accurate. It was very satisfying for a type A person like me. Plus I got to see our products and get gift ideas. I work too hard. I care too much. And sometimes I can be too invested in my job. Maybe if you apply for a job at Kraft, because that was a cheesy answer. Poor penmanship and swearing too much are my go-tos. Hiring managers usually get a chuckle out of it. My usual go-to is that I have had difficulty with taking criticisms personally, especially against me when in a leadership role. I then follow up with talking about how I'm working on it and feel I've improved as I've taken on roles with more responsibility. It is an annoying question, but if you can find something to talk about honestly, and also explain how you are working to improve it, you're golden. I sing in the shower. Sometimes I spend too much time volunteering. Occasionally I'll hit somebody with my car. My biggest weakness is performing X skill that is not involved in this job. I realized that my strengths lie elsewhere, which is why I have applied for jobs in this industry that utilize my strengths instead of weaknesses. For me, I say I have performed poorly in jobs that require physical labor, and so I've specifically chosen to strengthen my resume in areas outside of physical labor. You could do that with anything. I'm not good at dealing at sales when I don't believe in the product. So, I'm applying here because I do believe in this product. Etc. Frame your weakness as something that doesn't matter to this job. Interviewer, what is your biggest weakness? Me, I have no weakness. No vulnerability. I am the all. No man can best me. No woman can resist me. My power is absolute. I am what the night fears and the sun flees each day. To look upon me is to know your inevitable demise. At the end of time I will cry tears of burning oil and open my 1,000 mouths and herald the end of all that is. When nothing is left I will lord over the darkness and ash of all that was and all that will be. That you would imply that I am not everything that encompasses the reality you can see and the realities behind the veils of your sanity tells me that you will be the first to be consumed in the blood and shadows that hide behind this world. Look upon my true form and know death. But if I had to pick I'd say that I have some difficulty with adding pictures to a Word document. Interviewer, now just a soul bound to the blasted and charred skeleton and existing on the line between life and death, and in eternal agony. I think that's all the questions I have. We'll let you know when we've made a decision. Me, wonderful, I'll look forward to hearing from you. You give a weakness that has absolutely no relevancy towards the position you see. If you're going for an office job, tell them you have no mechanical skills. If you're going for a construction job, tell them you can't type. You get the point. I disagree. Give them a problem you have related to the job and how you plan to work on that problem. I have a strong desire to make sure that things are done and done correctly. Unfortunately, at times that has led me to be distracted and concerned with things that other employees or my subordinates are responsible for. It's been part of my growth as a supervisor to trust that my employees can perform their jobs properly and verify that they are doing it, instead of hovering or doing it for them. For any current science students looking to get jobs after graduating, I said, and employers liked, I never trust myself the first time with calculations and take too much time checking my math for calculating simple things like buffer and sample creation. I'll do the math, but I'll feel like I need to double check and triple check it before I actually weigh out the amount, and it always takes a lot longer than it should. Please don't tell them an actual strictly negative weakness. You're just hurting your interview. The trick is to come up with something like this, where it's a positive trait disguised as a weakness. Having an answer like this, rather than a typical negative like, I procrastinate, also shows that you prepared for the interview. I go with an honest answer that most recruiters can relate to. I say something along the lines of the fact that when I'm not busy I tend to get very bored and distracted and my levels of productivity go way down.